Okay, sir.
Okay. Good morning to all. This is Dr. B. Prasad Babu, Deputy Director, IGNOU Regional Center, Vijayawada. Already we have been conducting the counseling sessions for the MAPC first year for last 1 month. Every week we are conducting offline and online classes. Today we have MPC-005 research methodology, first year course. And another paper, MPC 004, Advanced Social Psychology. Tomorrow is the face-to-face mode class. And MPC 006, 7th of April, we have the face-to-face mode class. Today we have online class planned, and Dr. B. Sangeeta Madam, Associate Professor, Getam University. Madam will be the resource person for the today counseling session for MPC 005 research methodology. So Madam will give you the brief gist of the research methodology. This is not the teaching class. This is the only counseling session. Madam will give the brief orientation about the research methodology. Now, it is not the teaching class. If you have any doubts, you can ask the doubts. Madam will clarify. And this session will continue up to 1:30. But in between, by 11 or 10:30 or 11:30, Madam will take 15 minutes break. After that, again, it will continue. So 15 minutes to 20 minutes, we have the break. Madam, now we are handing over the session to you. So you can take 2 hours, and after that you can take 10 to 15 minutes or 20 minutes break, and then continue.
Okay, sir.
I think 11 to 11:30 we have break.
11 to?
11 to 11:30 or 11 to 11:15, whatever your convenience.
Yeah, 11 to 11:30 preferably. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Again 11:30 to 1:30 continue.
Fine, fine. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Good morning, everyone. I understand there are around 7 students. Let us make this interactive. I'll be glad.
Please on your cameras
Yeah,
of all the
I'll
students.
be glad if you can come in front of your cameras.
Yes, we will take one photograph also, because screenshot we need.
Okay.
Please on your cameras, all the students.
If you are not dressed for the occasion, you please adjust your camera in such a way that only your face is captured. Yes. Just the face, right? Yes. Nice.
గోపాల్ గారు ఒక స్క్రీన్ షాట్ తీయండి.
అలాగే సార్. Okay.
Also, you can on the cameras and listen whatever madam is telling. If you have any work or some disturbance is there, you can close your camera. Or otherwise, if you are there, madam will interact in good way. Otherwise, that monotony will be there.
Please feel comfortable to whichever way you feel like. So, right. We start off. Pravina Sana, Mogal Amir, Sudarani K, Pavni, Chitti Garu, okay, and 3 others, Suma Garu. Hope your introduction to MAPC has been good so far. And whatever papers that you're doing, whether it is advanced social psychology or foundations of psychology or lifespan development or any paper for that matter, we study so many examples. How did researchers or psychologists come up with these examples? right? So you will understand that a prime component of what we are reading, whether it is the Western psychology textbooks or the Indian psychology textbooks, a lot depends on the research that has been carried out. And we have read Freud, we have read Erikson, we have read Vygotsky, we have read Piaget. All of them have conducted, especially if you've done or understood cognitive psychology, which is also a paper in your MAPC first year, you will understand that these people have extensively carried out research on various circumstances, various contexts to arrive at what we are having on our hand right now. Okay, so what is this research that we are talking about? I want the response to come from your side. What is the research that we are talking about, or what is your understanding of research? Please feel free to talk whatever comes to your mind. This is not a penalizing session or anything. You're free to express your views about the topics that we are discussing, right? So, what is research, or what is the understanding you have about research? Anything? Yeah. Any one of you? I mean, it will motivate me also to talk more about the topic. Yeah, Suma garu, unmute yourself and మీకు అర్థమైన పరిధిలో చెప్పండి, పర్వాలేదు.
Again, when we are dealing with any person with any psychological issue, research basically involves like finding out what exactly is the problem, in what way we have to go, find out what are the reasons and all that. That could be the research actually.
Okay.
What are the process we are like utilizing to find out the exact core problem, the reasons
Okay.
behind it.
Okay. Amir garu.
Good morning, ma'am.
Madam.
I'm Sarita.
Yeah, 1 second. Let's hear Amir garu and then we'll come to Sarita.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, good morning, ma'am. Ma'am, research is
1 second.
what I've observed in my past experiences. You never know what the problem is, and you try to find out the result for it by making experiments again and again to find out what exactly should be
Sir,
done or how
can
to
I just
arrive at a
cut you
conclusion.
short? Can I just cut you short? Your voice is not clear. Can you please repeat?
Is it audible now, ma'am?
Yes, yes.
Well, yeah. Uh, research is nothing but you take a problem, you try to find a solution for it by making experiments again and again and arrive at a conclusion. The research may be either primarily it is on a practical mode, after which you take the data and finalize it on a documentation mode.
You're very close to what research is. Like we can understand, right? Sarita
Yes.
Garu, you wanted to say something? Amir Garu, please mute yourself so that Sarita Garu will talk and there's no disturbance.
Okay, ma'am. Hi,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yes,
Good
hi.
morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Research means it's a creation of new knowledge, ma'am, or the existing knowledge in a new creative way, ma'am.
Okay. Creation of,
It's a
okay.
it's a process of systematic inquiry. It's a collection of data.
Okay. Right. So all of you have valid points with you. As the word research indicates, what is it? RESEARCH. Right? So
Yes,
you
ma'am.
are searching for something again. Okay? It is research. You're trying to explore things. How are you exploring things? In a systematic manner. What are you exploring? You're exploring a problem. What is the problem? Anything and everything could be a problem from a researcher's lens, right? And then how do you arrive at solving the problem? You will formulate a hypothesis. What is the hypothesis? It is a probable statement. Okay, so how are you going to find out the hypothesis whether it is accepted or rejected? There are ways in which you can carry out your research. Basically, research is divided into two categories: quantitative research and qualitative research. Now, what is your understanding of quantitative research and qualitative research? Any guesses? I'm going to, anybody wants to contribute?
Good morning, madam. My name is Sudha.
Yes,
Quantitative
ma'am.
is a data analysis. Based on data, we are going to get the result and any cases we are going to do. Based
Okay.
on data is quantitative, as of my perception.
Okay.
Qualitative,
Yes, ma'am.
it's a theoretical.
Okay. Let me add some more to that. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Quantitative data means it's a number based, ma'am. It's a countable or measurable, ma'am.
Yeah. And
And
what?
qualitative data means it is interpreted descriptive, ma'am. Descriptive based language related to language.
Okay. Right. So it's nice that I'm getting a lot of responses in terms of being very close to the actual answers. So quantitative data or quantitative research basically deals a lot with numbers, right? How? We have questionnaires. That is one example. Okay, we have questionnaires, and when we are drawing information, for instance, self-esteem. Any idea what is the questionnaire that is available for measuring self-esteem? Or we have a question to measure our stress levels, which is called the perceived stress scale. Okay, so if we want to know whether a person is experiencing stress or not, what will we do? We will administer the perceived stress scale. And how do we interpret that scores? We have the manual that gives us the direction that certain items in the questionnaire will have to be scored straight and certain will have to be scored in reverse. So we get an ultimate total score or an overall score, and the manual itself gives us the scores as to which one considers which score falls under the high level category, mid level category, or low level stress category. So what happens when, I mean, in the sense, what happens when a person falls under high level category? It is indicative that this particular person is experiencing a lot of stress, because of which he might experience some kind of psychosomatic disorders. It always need not be drawn towards these psychosomatic disorders. It just gives us an understanding as to the levels of stress that this person is experiencing. Now, one more thing we can understand from such a questionnaire is you just need not administer to one person. For instance, you're carrying out a particular project. Okay, you want to know the stress levels of employees. So what do? You share the questionnaire with all the employees who is your target population, and then gather their results, and then you do your statistics depending on whatever you are going to uh, whatever is your problem statement. So depending on the result, you will find out uh, what can be for example, we have stress and self esteem. Okay, so what is the connection you can hypothesize that exists between stress and self esteem? Any guesses? Greater the stress, how will be the self esteem of a person? What is self esteem? The feeling of self worth,
It decreases. It
right?
decreases.
Yeah. So what is commonsensical? Greater the stress, lower will be the self esteem. So what are you doing? If it is a quantitative study that you are having on hand, and you want to test the employees' self-esteem and stress to see if there is a relationship. What is our research problem? To study the stress, to study the relationship between stress and self-esteem of employees in an organization ABC. So you will give them questionnaires. What questionnaires will you give them? You will give them a standardized perceived stress scale, and you will give them a standardized scale that will measure self-esteem. And these two scales will come with standardized manuals as well. How you will value the scores, how you will classify them, everything is given. And then once you tabulate the results in an Excel sheet, you will transport the same into SPSS. What is SPSS? Statistical Package for Social Sciences. And we have lot of versions in that, and now the latest version going on is 29. So we will run the SPSS on this, and then we will arrive, what will we do there? We will see the correlation between these two variables that we have taken into consideration. What are our two variables? Stress levels and self-esteem. So what are we hypothesizing? There will be a significant relationship between stress levels perceived and the self-esteem perceived by the employees in the organization A, B, C. Okay, this is our hypothesis. And once we run the analysis, we get the results. If certain tools have subdomains and certain tools have straight questions, there are no subdomains. So if there are subdomains, then we will see if there is a relationship between the subdomains and the overall variable that we are studying. So now if we see that the results the results arrive in the form of a box, and if they are significant, there is a single star or 2 stars. Okay, if there is a single star, we say it is significant at 0.05 level, and if it is 2 stars, we say it is highly significant at 0.01 level. Now what does this 0.05 indicate? It indicates that 95 times out of 100 times there is likelihood that stress levels have a direct relationship on self-esteem. It will lower the levels of self-esteem. And if it is 0.01, which is highly significant, we will say out of 100 times, 99% of the cases or 99 cases have experienced lower self-esteem because of this stress they are experiencing. So you have arrived at a conclusion. What did you carry out just now? A small research. Where? In an organization named ABC. What did you find out? This particular organization, the employees are experiencing lower self-esteem if they are having lot of stress. So what has this been? This has been a perfect example of quantitative research, right? And what is the research design you have used? The research design you have used is called a cross-sectional design. Why is it called a cross-sectional design research? You have gathered the data in a stipulated period of time. Now, how much time did you take to gather data? Say 4 weeks or 3 weeks. Okay. Any guesses what is the opposite of a cross-sectional design? Anybody has any idea what is the opposite of a cross-sectional design? Another research design we have is the longitudinal design. What do we mean by longitudinal design? For instance, this kind of research is carried out widely in lifespan development. Do you all have this paper, lifespan development, in your first year?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
So you will understand what are the different spans of development we are studying. What are they? We study prenatal development, we study birth and infancy,
Establishment.
we study childhood. Under childhood, we have early childhood, mid childhood, late childhood, and adolescence fits in somewhere here, right? And after childhood, we move into adulthood. And what is this adulthood? Again classified as early adulthood, middle adulthood, late adulthood. Late adulthood also has further subclassifications: early old age, mid old age, and old age, right? And then the last phase is dying. So, in lifespan development, how are you able to find out various factors that are so specific to these stages in our development? Researchers have carried out longitudinal research. So, in cross sectional research, data is collected, say within a month or just within 3 months or 4 months. For instance, you are pursuing your PhD, it is definitely not possible to gather data from all your target population within a month. You would probably need around 6 months to 12 months to finish data collection. But does that qualify as a longitudinal study? No. The distinct characteristic of a longitudinal study is that the same individual who has been who has given responses on a specific questionnaire, say in the month of March now, the same individual will be approached again after 6 months. Okay, and if further information is to be sought, the same individual will again be approached after another 6 months. So you see, you're gathering data. For instance, I'll take Suma's name. I'm gathering data from Suma in March. I'm approaching Suma again in the month of 6 months after March. That becomes August or September, right? Again, 6 months from there becomes March. So what am I doing? I am approaching the same person to study the same thing. What will I get out of it? You will see the development that has taken place. Whether there is a progressive development or there is a regressive development in the variable that you are studying. Okay. Is it clear now? When you take lifespan development as an area, you will very clearly understand how physical development happens, how cognitive development happens, how language development happens, social development happens, emotional development happens across the lifespan, right? And so if you want to establish a particular fact, studying the same person will give you a lot of information. It is a powerhouse of information. You will be able to map the various changes that are happening in one person, right? So this is longitudinal design, trying to express in a very layman's term, right? Of course, your textbooks have a lot of specific information about different types of data that you could gather, right? How can research be carried out and all that stuff. Now, if we go back to your research methods paper, what are you studying there? There is introduction to research methods in psychology. There are different types of research that you'll study: research design and qualitative research in psychology. Now, what are the basic process or concepts in research? Then what have you to do with reliability and validity? What are variables and constructs? And what is hypothesis formulation and sampling? Then we go to another block. It gives us information about the types of research: survey research, ex post facto research, experimental research, and case study. Then we talk about the research design, which has a single factor design, factorial design, a quasi experimental design, and other designs like correlational design and comparative design. The example that I had given you just now was that of a correlational design, because we tried to see the relationship between two variables that are considered in the study. What are the two variables? Stress and self-esteem. Now, when we talk about variables, how can we define a variable, right? We will talk topic by topic. Then, talking about qualitative research in psychology, there is something called ethnography, there is grounded theory, there is discourse analysis, and how we can report and evaluate in qualitative research. These are the various aspects that we will talk about in research methodology, in your research methods. I think not quantitative is not spoken about here, or let us see. Is it clear so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Any doubts?
No, nothing so far.
Okay. So we are trying to understand what is research, and we got a 95% closely related answers from the group, right? So to summarize, research is something scientific and is systematic and objective. What do we mean when we are saying objective? Supposing I am talking about a particular scenario in my office, and yeah, people are asking whether they are stressed or no. I am a person who works wonderfully well under pressure. Okay, so what does it mean? I work well under pressure means my productivity levels are high when I am stressed. So my esteem is going to be high. But is it the same case with others? Definitely not, because each one of us has our own way of reacting to things, right? So what opinion I am giving is my opinion. It is a highly subjective opinion. It is not an objective opinion. What is an objective opinion? Regardless of whom you are talking about, the opinion that you give should not be any kind of a biased opinion, right? So in research, you are trying to find out answers to certain questions, and through our research, we are arriving at an organized body of knowledge. So when we are testing it, it becomes an empirical analysis, and it is also done under controlled observation. What do we mean by controlled observation? Whatever we are doing, for instance, just go with the simple example that I have started off, collecting data. How? Giving them questionnaires. Now, thanks to the pandemic, collecting data has become extremely easy. When we were doing our PhD, myself and Dr. Prasad Babu also, we had the prints of the questionnaires with us. We used to carry out these printed forms along with us and then distribute it to the sample. For instance, I carried out my PhD on diabetic patients, and Prasad sir carried out his PhD on people who were suffering from tuberculosis, right? So what did we do? We readied all our questionnaires put together, and then went to the hospitals or clinics where these patients were coming, and then gave them the questionnaires. So such was the kind of rigor that was done, followed earlier prior to the pandemic. But thanks to the pandemic, things have become a lot more easier in the terms that we have something called Google Forms. Okay, so we will enter all the questions forms, I mean the questions that are there in the questionnaires in the Google form, and then distribute it or send the link to our target population, right? So research data collection has sort of become very, very easy, right? And then the finding that we get out of the research, we are able to develop certain kind of concepts, we are able to make certain generalizations. Now, what is this generalization? For instance, we have arrived at a result which says stress has a direct relationship. No. What is it? A direct relationship or an indirect relationship with self-esteem?
Direct means if stress levels will increase, then self-esteem
Should increase.
yeah,
But here we are having a
inverse.
inverse
Yeah.
relationship. So,
Yeah.
is this the phenomenon that occurs everywhere in any organization apart from organization ABC? So, how can we generalize our results? I conducted my test only on 100 sample. My observation is only on 100 people. Is it right? Can I generalize the result then?
No.
No, ma'am.
How can I generalize the result? When can I generalize the result?
Then we need to take samples, 10% of the population.
10% of the population. Is it a
Yeah,
thumb?
what?
Is it a thumb rule?
Ma'am, sample means it's a some percentage of population where we can
See, it
do
is
our
not.
research.
It is not a percentage of the population. We have certain formulae which will help us calculate our sample size. Okay. Uh, the population, depending on the test that we are doing, we have either a finite population or an infinite population. Okay. So based on finite or infinite, your formula changes. And if it is an infinite population, the minimum sample size you need to have is 389. If you are looking for 0.05 level of significance. Okay. If it is 0.01, it differs. So if you want to generalize your results, then it has to be a minimum of 389 or 400. Okay. So whatever results you are getting, you should be able to generalize. Small projects, 100 or 60 is fine. Clinical samples, 30 is fine. But a lot depends on your sample size, because the results that you are getting, you should be able to generalize them. Okay. And the major difference here between quantitative and qualitative is, for quantitative research, you at least need a minimum sample size of 400. But for qualitative research, I have seen researches where they have just interviewed around 15 to 20 respondents and they have wound up their research. How easy is that? We may think like that. But qualitative research has many other procedures involved, and if you do in that systematic manner, and if you arrive at the same response even after interviewing say 20 people, then it is said that you have arrived at a saturation and you can stop your interviews. Okay. So you see, quantitative can be laborious in terms of meeting the huge numbers of respondents, whereas qualitative data, if done right, you can arrive at wonderful findings even with just a small sample size of 20 to 25. I mean, it depends whether you have arrived at the saturation or not, right? So then we talk about different models. Experimental model. So what is this experimental model? So recently, one of the IGNOU students only carried out this experimental model. Her project was on finding out if art therapy has any influence or any effect on the stress and anxiety that they are experiencing. So what did she do? She gave the DAS scale. What is the DAS scale? Depression, anxiety and stress scale. She gave the DAS scale to a group of teachers. Okay, and then she asked these teachers to attend an art therapy program. It's called, wait, the program is mandala drawing. Okay, so this is called the mandala drawing, which is considered as very therapeutic in nature. So what she did, every day half an hour she would get them do this mandala art, and then after 2 weeks, yeah, sorry, it's not 10 days, after 2 weeks she gave them the questionnaire again, the DAS questionnaire again. So she tried to understand what are the differences in stress levels that these people have undergone because of doing. Someone is saying they can't hear my voice. Is it the case with all?
No, ma'am, we are able to hear you.
Okay, so probably that person can check their internet connection once. Lakshmi Garu, you can check your internet because the others are able to hear clearly. Yeah. So you see, what is this model then? This is called a pre-test and a post-test model. Okay, what did she do in the pre-test? She just gave them the questionnaire. Then what did she do? She made them practice mandala art for 15 days without fail, and she did it for 30 minutes every day. And then what did she do? She gave them the DAS questionnaire again. What do you think will be the result? This is very predictable. Almost all of them said they were able to manage their work better. They experienced a sense of calm. Okay, so this is one example of a pre and post test. Is this research? Definitely yes. Okay, then what is an example of experimental research? So you are carrying out an experiment like the productivity levels of employees in an organization. How can you improve the productivity levels? So in order to understand this, what you have to do? Any guesses? Can we just have a small discussion on this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. See, you all can read from your textbooks what is research methodology, what are the different types of research available. You can definitely read from your textbook. I am trying to help you all understand through real practical examples. Okay? Yeah, let us just discuss this experimental method of research. What is the basic understanding you have about this? Someone was about to share something. What is experimental research?
Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, ma'am, I think experimental research is all about taking people, keeping them under conditions, under what do you call? How can I explain?
I
Yeah,
got your point.
yeah,
You are
and
very
then
close. Yeah.
we will give them some what do you call? Like there was a test called saliva and the dog, that how the dog is doing while the person is bringing him the food. And
Okay.
what the amount of saliva that it secretes when it
Yes.
eats the food, and then after a period of time, when a person comes, then it starts secrets because it has understood that when the person is coming means it's going to bring the food. And
Perfect.
after a period of time, when he rings the bell, then it understands. Okay, then when the bell rings, it gets the food. So this is, I think, is called as an experimental research, man.
Oh, great, great. You have quoted the landmark experiment in the field of psychology. It has been conducted by Ivan Pavlov,
Yes, ma'am.
and it is called classical conditioning.
Yeah, ma'am.
Definitely an experimental method. Later on, operant conditioning conducted by Skinner.
Yes, ma'am.
Then Alfred Bandura came up with social learning theory after his experiments on various things, right? And
Yes,
so you see, field of psychology is replete with lots of experiments. Okay, so one more thing that I want to bring to light here is experiment need not always be in that mode itself. We can also conduct, in order to know the effect of a variable on the outcome, we need to compare it with something. When can we do this comparison? When we have a control group. Now, what do you mean by a control group? What do you mean by an experimental group? For instance, you want to know the effect of a pill. Okay? When you give the pill to the person, the problem is solved. But in order to find out the efficiency of the pill, what you have to do? You have to take two groups. One group is the experimental group to whom you are going to give the real pill. Another group is the control group to whom you are going to give only a placebo. What is a placebo? It is just a sugar-coated pill. Okay? But all these participants are there in the same room and you give them all the tablet, right? But you have a note of who is in experimental group and who is in control group. Okay, so those who have taken a control group are the ones who are given the sugar coated pill. Those who are in the experimental group are the ones who are given the real pill. So what is expected generally? The experimental group will show the real reduction in the problem. But in some cases, it so happens that the control group participants also show a betterment in their condition. Why? They believe that they have been treated by a pill. Okay, so, and this is just an example. A placebo is given to find out the real effect, which we can study from the experimental group. Similarly, another experiment, how to see whether the productivity of the employees has increased or no. So employees were working under some kind of a condition. Then the organization increased the illumination levels. Then they saw that the productivity has gone high. They have added music to see if music also contributed to better productivity. Then how many decibels of this music is important to bring about the maximum productivity for the employees? High, low, medium, right? So all these observations were compared to a control group who did not have anything added to their working condition. They did not have better illumination. They did not have any kind of music. Okay. And other things that you need to also bear in mind when you are studying these variables. What are the variables you have studied here in this uh, experiment? Productivity, output, etc. You will also notice that when we are trying to study the level of productivity relationship with degree of illumination, we should also take into consideration that there are no loud noises around that will distract the person. Okay, so these noises or unwanted disturbances or distractors are called extraneous variables, which need to be controlled when you are carrying out an experiment. Okay, clear so far? Any doubts? Shall I
No,
proceed?
no, it's clear. Perfect.
Okay. Only Prashant is responding. Sarita, Suma.
Please catch.
Okay. No doubts so far, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Right. So, to sum up, what is research? A systematic investigation to find answers to a problem. Now, lot of research is being done. Good research and bad research. Everybody aims to do good research. So, what is good research in that way? You need to have a perfect plan of action. You cannot. We will discuss the questions once this. We will put the questions to the next part. Okay. Once the flow is over, we'll come back to questions. Any questions, please jot down in the chat box. Yeah, research needs to be carried out with a plan, with the variables very clearly identified and operationally defined. Okay, I think there has been a change in your syllabus also. Earlier, your master's degree also had a dissertation mandatory, but now I think we have positive psychology. So the student can either choose positive psychology or choose dissertation. If you were handling dissertation, then you would come to know about these variables, whether there is a relationship, how is the hypothesis formulated, all those things you would have been exposed to. You still have time to take a call whether you will do a theory paper or you will go in for a dissertation, right? So the research procedure that you are carrying out should be planned, focused, and described appropriately so that other researcher who wants to do research on this can take the research forward. Okay, and precisely that is the reason why we call research as being very scientific. What is scientific? It follows the cause and effect model, or it is very objective, or its results are there available in the outside for others to research again. Okay, so that is what I may establish a particular fact which is an output of my research. Another researcher might refute the findings that I have found in my research. So research is always for delving deeper and deeper on different sets of samples or respondents and establishing facts about those particular samples, right? So the research report should be very objective in nature and must emphasize the findings and also emphasize the limitations that the researcher has found in the entire process. Now then, the data analysis should be in such a way that it talks about the significance of the results, it talks about the method that has been adhered to when the research was carried out. Now, if you go to Google Scholar and find out a particular topic, you will see that people have spoken, people have talked about everything in a systematic manner, right? Why did I mention Google Scholar? That is a repository of lot of research that has happened. It is a platform where you can find lots of journal articles, that you can find. For instance, tell me one area that you are interested in understanding. Any one of you? We will just discuss that topic. Any one of you who is interested in a research topic? You are unsure as to what research you want to do, but you are curious about that topic.
Ma'am, I think I have a curiosity on knowing that when people want to do something in life, for example, some kind of passion or setting up something or setting up business or writing or something, whatever it is. So when they do it, then how their life changes.
Pardon?
Like when people do something for themselves, for example, somebody is setting up a company,
Huh.
for example, some business sector. Okay, then he does various things that changes him into something which could do that business.
Okay.
Okay, so if somebody else wants to do that, like for example, this is a we call him A and the other person is B. For example, I am the B. Then I want to learn how that guy or a girl has done that. Then how to understand them.
Are you having a research question? I doubt if it is a research question.
Okay, so I just want
See,
to understand the
see
human psychologist how he does that.
how people do certain things.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, let us
Mhm.
let me understand your question.
Okay.
You're trying to say
Mm-hmm.
Mr. X
Yes.
is
Perfect.
able to do something.
Yeah.
You're curious to know how he is able to do it.
Hmm.
Then there is Miss Y who is also able to do stuff like him.
Okay. The why is not able to do what X has done.
You?
Why is not able to do what X has done?
Okay.
Because he has some lacking in his
So
mindset.
we are talking about research methods here.
Okay.
So for the situation that you have stated,
Mm-hmm.
quantitative is not the research that we have to take. We have to follow qualitative method. So
Okay.
one of the fundamental processes or procedures we use in qualitative research is
Mhm.
interviews.
Okay.
Interviews.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
So
Ji.
you approach Mr. X,
Okay.
and it is that will be, just a second.
Sure. Okay. Mhm.
See, qualitative research,
Mhm.
you take one person,
Mhm.
that becomes a case study.
Perfect.
One person, one organization, one individual, one concept.
Mhm.
Okay, that becomes only a case study. You cannot generalize the findings. Okay, for
Mhm.
for instance, now we hear about um, what do all successful businessmen do?
Mhm.
Why are they successful? Why are
Mhm.
others not so successful? Okay,
Mhm. Okay.
the observations have come to a conclusion that all these
Mhm.
successful women, whether it is Mukesh Ambani or Adani or anybody,
Whoever.
it has been established that they are early risers.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how did they arrive at that conclusion? They must have gotten in touch with all these people,
All those people.
or
Mhm.
got an understanding of their daily schedule,
Correct.
what systematic approach they use and they
Mhm.
follow.
Perfect.
So
Okay.
now this
Mhm.
finding
Mhm.
gives them enough ground to
Mhm.
identify where the
Mhm.
subject is. For instance, consider
Perfect. Got it.
me. Why am I not as successful as the successful people?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So you conduct an interview with 30 people.
Done.
All 30 people will say, we
Mhm.
wake up very early in the morning,
Mhm.
we do a lot of time management,
Mhm.
we write a things to do list for the next day's activities,
Mhm.
right? So they tell you such 3 to 4 points.
Okay.
So you have, there is no necessity that you get this data from all 30 people.
Hmm.
You will have an idea, I will interview 30 people, but say by 15th person itself, you arrive at the same points,
Saturation points. Correct.
you can stop.
Correct. Awesome.
But,
Yes.
but if you gather information from only one person, you are
Generally.
giving information only about that one person. You
Okay.
cannot generalize.
Generalize it. Perfect.
That remains only as a case study.
Got it.
So
So,
that one individual who is successful to another individual who is not successful, you really cannot research anything.
correct. Got it. Perfect.
Okay. So again, the model that you said, a quantitative will not satisfy your question. A qualitative method would better satisfy your question.
Damn. So,
Okay.
for the case of quantitative,
Huh.
I have another question. Like somebody does a crime, then what has happened in his life because of which he did that?
See,
That
quantitative is all about two types of data.
Okay.
What are those two types? How you analyze your data? That's what I'm trying to say. One, descriptive statistics, and two, inferential statistics.
Okay.
Then, what is this descriptive statistics? It comprises of mean, standard deviation, percentages, frequencies, minimum, maximum, right? All these come under your descriptive statistics. Then the correlation example that I have given, that comes under inferential statistics.
Okay.
Okay. And then there is the t-test. There is the f-test. The pre-test and post-test intervention study that I had discussed just now, that another IGNOU student had carried out for his project, that also comes under inferential statistics. So it is not clearly evident to the eye. Can we calculate mean? Yes.
Okay. There.
Average.
Yes, we can calculate mean.
So that is descriptive. So say, what is the class size here? I can see there are 15 participants. Okay. So what is the average of their responses? I can arrive at it. Can I arrive at the minimum and maximum score of this group of 15? Yes.
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 Can I arrive at a frequency of this? Yes.
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Percentage? Yes. Mode? Yes. Right? All these are descriptive statistics. And crosstabs is another. Now, what is this crosstabs? How many women in the group are able to do it? Yes or no? How many men in the group are able to do it? Say we are 15 here, and I understand there are around 4 men and 11 women. So how many of the men are saying yes? How many of the men are saying no? How many of the women are saying yes, and how many of them are saying no? All these details we can get from our descriptive statistics. Okay. So what does our inferential statistic tell us? Whether we can accept a hypothesis or reject a hypothesis. For just the descriptive statistics, we cannot have a hypothesis.
Correct. Exactly.
When we are having or trying to see a relationship between two variables, we run the correlation. Whether we run a Pearson product moment correlation or a Spearman correlation, everything, again, we have to go deep into statistics part, whether it is a parametric test we are using or a non-parametric test we are using. So all that depends on the sample size we have taken for our research.
Okay.
So if your sample is representative of the entire population, then you go in for parametric statistics.
Okay.
If it is representative of the population, the results that you are getting can be generalizable to the entire population. right?
Got it. Good.
So
Okay.
many a times, if it is not a serious kind of a dissertation, like a research level, MPhil or PhD level of dissertation, we just say gather data from 100 sample, 100 respondents. Sometimes students come back and say, ma'am, we could not get it from 100 respondents. We have gathered only from 60. So we still carry out the research, but key remains in using the test. We use non-parametric tests. When the sample size is not large, we stick to non-parametric tests. So we have Kruskal-Wallis test and we have Wilcoxon test, and other tests are there in non-parametric which are equivalent to the parametric. Okay, so all these are done very easily with the help of SPSS.
Okay. Is that a software, ma'am?
Pardon?
SPSS is a
Software.
software. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. See, many of these can be done even in an Excel sheet.
Okay.
Right?
Anything. Even in Google Forms, when we give a survey, then we can actually get the total information
So
in terms of graphs.
you are getting the frequencies and graphs
Yes,
from
ma'am.
the Google form. But our research is not as simple as just getting the descriptive data. When we are going in for further analysis, where we are using inferential statistics, that is where we are finding out whether there is a significant relationship, and we are either accepting or rejecting the hypothesis we have formulated.
Perfect.
Okay. Again, what is a hypothesis? Hypothesis is a probable statement, right? And then two types of hypothesis: null hypothesis or alternate hypothesis.
Okay.
Okay. Directional hypothesis.
Okay.
Right. What is a null hypothesis? Which says there is no relationship at all.
Okay.
What is an alternate hypothesis? Which says that there is a relationship. So again, how you express this hypothesis, different people do it in different ways. Some say you have to represent your H0 and H1. That means a null hypothesis and an alternate hypothesis. Some say there is no need to mention a null hypothesis. An alternate hypothesis would suffice. And why should you state a null hypothesis? If it is done for the first time, if it is exploratory kind of a work, then you state a null hypothesis. Otherwise, you go ahead with an alternate hypothesis.
Okay.
Right? So all these things come under hypothesis. So I have sort of digressed from the topic where I was.
But huge information. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes, talking about data analysis, right? So your analysis, every research, okay, you can give. I'm talking only about quantitative now. Qualitative, we will talk in the second part of the discussion, right? So
Okay.
every quantitative research, it is ideal that you give the descriptive stats first, then move on to the next part. Okay, so assessing the levels of anxiety, the levels of depression, and the levels of stress. Like I was giving this example of DAS, right? What was done there? We did an assessment of the levels, then gave them the intervention. Intervention is any kind of a treatment that you subject your group to. Okay, so the intervention was practicing mandala art for half an hour for 2 weeks, and then again give the DAS to these participants. We ensured that the same participants came in. Another major important aspect that you have to consider whether you are carrying out a quantitative research or qualitative research is informed consent. Okay, and research ethics is another major area which you have to be aware of and abide by when you are carrying any kind of a research. Okay, what is this informed consent? We have something called FIP, former FPI, I think. Wait, FPIC, right? Prior informed consent. Okay. So, as a respondent, I have the choice to come out of the research program if I am uncomfortable at any juncture. You, as a researcher, cannot stop me. Okay. Every research now needs to gather this informed consent from the respondent and only then proceed with the collection of data. Okay. And if it is, again, I'm not talking about serious or not so serious, I'm just talking about a PhD program or an MPhil program where this is mandatory. Okay. Ethical issues are there. For instance, like I was telling you all about the kind of research that I had carried out and Dr. Prasad Babu had carried out, there were patients involved. And in health psychology research, we need to get the informed consent signed. At that time, it wasn't mandatory. Like when we did our research, it was 20, I was awarded in 2003, and probably around that time only, even Dr. Prasad was awarded his thesis, his doctorate. But during our time, it wasn't mandatory. But from where do we get the responses? If the subjects did not accept to be a part of our study, there was no other way we could get the responses. But research also has evolved over a lot of these decades, and we have now something called the formal prior informed consent. It is just like our terms and conditions apply. So the respondent also has certain rights. And as a researcher, we should assure them that we are going to maintain strict confidentiality with all the data that has been shared by the respondents. Okay. So we are talking about what is good research. A good research should be reliable and valid. Now, what is reliability and what is validity? For instance, I am using a particular questionnaire and I want to measure stress. I need to pick up a tool that will measure stress. And it has to give me the same kind of responses. Say, for instance, if I take the test now, I take the test after a month, I take the same test again after another month, the kind of responses that it should elicit from me should remain the same. Okay.
Consistency, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, consistency.
Reliability and validity. Yeah, reliability is consistency. Validity is it has
Accuracy.
to, yeah, it has to measure what it purports to measure. I just used the wrong word earlier. The test should measure what it purports to measure. That is validity. If I'm trying to measure stress, the questions need to pertain to the area of stress. The questionnaire should not include something else. Okay. Reliability, I need to be getting the same kind of responses, same kind of scores on a questionnaire, how many hour number of times it is administered on the same individual. Okay. So a research tool has to be valid and reliable as well, right? Then we can say the research that we are doing is reliable and valid. I'll share my screen with you all and I'll give you a practical example as to how we can understand these concepts. So here I am going to Google Scholar. This is one very good research database where we can see the kind of research that is done in any particular area, right? So now let us study What is it that I have written? Are you able to see?
Studies on work, engagement, and job satisfaction in employees.
Right? I want to see what kind of research has already been done in this area. Now, tell me what are the variables that I have considered for my research?
Employees and job.
No. Work
Engagement and satisfaction.
Yes, work engagement is one variable, job satisfaction is another variable. Now, can you tell me what is the independent variable in this and what is the dependent variable in this?
Job satisfaction is independent variable.
No.
Mhm.
The
Okay.
outcome always is your dependent variable. If I am highly engaged in my job, automatically my job satisfaction will be high. We can say vice versa also. If I am highly satisfied with my job, I will engage myself too much in the job. Okay, but here I am saying work engagement has an influence on job satisfaction. So let us just see what can be done here. We can see a correlation, right? So let us see what kind of research is done in these areas. So you see an analysis of the relationship between job satisfaction and employee engagement. Let us take a deeper look into this article. So, abstract, introduction. So what did they do? Method is important. Let us just see. The theoretical background is given. Then, so this is a research article that we are going through. Look at the research methodology part. Sample. For this research, what is the research? They are trying to find out the relationship between job satisfaction and work engagement. The authors selected population, residents in the Savinja statistical region in Slovenia. The investigated unit were people over 16 years old employed in the enterprise or an institution. The sampling frame consisted of residents from different places and towns in Savinja statistical region. The sample consists of 594 respondents. The study included 251 men and 339 women and 4 respondents who did not answer the questions. There were 37 people with completed primary school level. So this is the information about education, right? The average age of respondents is 35.82 years. The standard deviation is 9.66. Average salary is 935.35 netto euros and standard deviation is this, right? So the questionnaire, you have to describe the questionnaire that you have used, and then there is this work engagement scale, UWES. 9 items were there, and then they have given the Cronbach's alpha higher than 0.80. Good psychometric properties. What are these psychometric properties? They talk about the reliability and validity. Okay, when this is 0.80, it is talking about high correlation levels. Okay, what is the range of correlation? Any idea? What is the range of correlation? -1 to +1. Okay, -1, 0 to +1. If it is a positive correlation, so the values will be 0.10 or 0.025, or it could be 0.8, it could be 0.4, right? When it is 0.8, we'll say it is highly correlated. When it is 0.2, it is low positive correlation. When it is minus 0.4, it is moderate negative correlation. Okay, your values will range from -1 to +1. Oh. Right, so this is the standardized tool that has been used for work engagement scale, and another standardized tool that is used for job satisfaction, right? So this is about case processing engagement, reliability statistics of engagement, then job satisfaction. They have done factor analysis. Then you see, this is the correlation matrix between variables that measure engagement using the Gallup questionnaire. Okay, a correlation matrix is like that, and this is another one, right? So this is how analysis is done. This is the reliability statistics for the Gallup questionnaire. Okay, the factor analysis is carried out, and then see, what is the hypothesis? Hypothesis was laid out earlier. Okay, so regression also gives an in-depth relationship between the variables that are considered in the study. So we do a t-test and an f-test. When do we do a t-test? When do we do an f-test? Whenever you're, like I said, work engagement is one variable and job satisfaction is another variable. When work engagement serves as the independent variable, job satisfaction is the dependent variable. We just do not see the relationship between these two. We also see the relationship increasing age has with work engagement, or increasing age has with job satisfaction. Okay, so these come under demographic variables. What other demographic variables can we consider when we are gathering data? Why should you actually consider demographic variables? They give us a new research information. Okay, supposing I am taking age into consideration, we can say greater the age, greater is going to be the work engagement shown by the employee, and better is going to be the job satisfaction. That is one of my hypothesis. Okay, so age, gender, men are more satisfied with their job than women. That is another hypothesis. Okay, your marital status could be another demographic variable. Okay, now how do we find out whether it has any association with work engagement or no? We will run a t-test. A t-test is run when the variable is divided only into two categories. Gender, sorry, that is how a t-test is run. When do we run an f-test? When the variable is divided into more than two categories. So that means it is grouped in 3 or 4. You will run an f-test, which is also called ANOVA. Okay, so if I want to see whether women have better work engagement or men have better engagement, I will have to gather information about gender. So I use a t-test and then run the SPSS with the t-test. we look at the mean values. The comparison point is the mean values on the tool that we have given them. If it is significant, that means if the value is less than 0.05, then it is significant. If the p value is less than 0.05, we consider that as significant. Fine, it is significant. Who is showing more work engagement? The group that scores greater mean value, they will show greater engagement. Let me just show you one of the theses. You will understand it better.
Ma'am, can you say again about t-test and f-test?
Yeah, I will get back. 1 second. I'm just trying to extract one thesis. See, this is one study that has been submitted by a student. What is the study? Organizational citizenship behavior and counterproductive behavior in employees working in an organization. Right? I'll show you the kind of variables we have considered for the study. See, this is the methodology part, research method, which has first the research problem. What are the objectives? To assess the level of organization citizenship behavior and counterproductive work behavior in servicemen and ex-servicemen. Okay, and then we are assessing the level. Then we are examining the relationship between organization citizenship behavior and counterproductive behavior. Then to find out the effect of demographic variables. What are the demographic variables considered for this study? Age, years of service, gender, marital status, type of family. Okay, so these are the hypotheses that have been formulated. There will be a significant relationship between organization citizenship behavior and counterproductive work behavior. Then there will be significant difference in OCB and CWB among these two groups with regard to age, with regard to the years of service, with regard to gender, with regard to marital status, with regard to type of family. Right? So you see how we have divided. This is the age. We have divided them in two groups. How did we divide age into two groups? We found the mean age of the participants, and then we arrived at less than 39 years and more than 39 years. So age range is divided into two groups. Then you see gender. How many males are there and how many females are there? Another one, type of family they belonged to: nuclear family, joint family. Then marital status, single or married. So in this particular thing, nowhere do we have the independent variable divided into more than 3 categories. If we have 3 categories, then we use an F test. For instance, gender, we can have 3 categories. Nowadays, people are not stopping at male and female. They are also giving the liberty for the people to say if they are other category. Now look at this. This is a correlation table. Okay. So here less than 39 years and more than 39 years. Here you see the mean value. Let us look at OCB1. OCB1, for convenience sake, we just, this item number 1 is given in the appendix. Only because we are not able to accommodate the entire point here, we have conveniently given it a code as OCB1. Okay. If you see this OCB1, you will find that 3.91 is one mean, 3 is another mean, and the t value is found to be significant at 3.311 and 2 stars are there. When 2 stars are there, your p value is 0.01. So, who is showing more OCB? Those who are less than 39 years of age. What is OCB? Organization, citizenship, behavior. Okay. So I don't want to confuse you more. We will discuss about all this when we meet after our break. We meet at 11:30 again. Any questions? Just drop in the chat box in the meantime. We meet again at 11:30. So far so good. Are we all on the same page?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So,
Yes, ma'am.
we quite informative but need to practice so that I can understand more. Definitely yes. And that is precisely the reason why Dr. Prasad said, I will only be facilitating over here. Okay. Rather than taking a lecture. A lecture would mean replicating whatever is there in your textbook already. But I am trying to show you the practical aspect of what you are studying. Okay, we meet again at 11:30, right? The link remains like this, and I want it to be more interactive with lot more questions to be answered, doubts to be clarified. Okay, see, there is whole lot of information that I could share, but the slot that we are given is, I think, good enough to get a decent amount of understanding about research methodology. Okay, we meet at 11:30 then, right?
Hello.
Hello. Shall I start?
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
Okay. There were 15 earlier. Now we are dropped to 10. Let's just hope the others also will join soon. So just taking off from where we left, I'm trying to show you one sample research dissertation, right? And then trying to tell you how you find the association, or you accept or reject the hypothesis, whatever. I am sharing my screen again. Yeah, so this is another elaborate one, which I thought I will just take you all over. So this is something, the title is Work Motivation, Perceived Organizational Support, and Psychological Health of Employees During the Pandemic. And this is considered in startups, right? So, how should a report be, a research dissertation be? First of all, you will introduce your variables for the study. We'll talk about work motivation, then what is perceived organizational support, then what is psychological health of employees. Then, when we are doing a research article or a thesis or a dissertation, no doubt we are trying to search it again, but there is no point in trying to prove what has been proved earlier. What is our contribution? What is our new contribution to already existing body of research? So, in order to make our contribution unique, what should we include? How should we go about it? Key is in identifying the research gap. Now, how do we identify that research gap? We are, like I showed you all how to do this Google Scholar thing, how we go to Google Scholar and we type out studies on these dimensions, these variables. We get millions of results, but out of that we will select a few that are relevant to us, right? Relevant to, or whatever catches our interest. So once our identification of the problem is over, then we have to arrive at the research problem. Once that is done, we will see what research has been done earlier in the field. That is called our review of literature. Okay, so whatever then for how many years you have to carry out this review of literature? For instance, if the work is on pandemic, what can you do about pandemic? What earlier research is there about pandemic? Not much, right? So you will say, I will look into research that is past 5 years. I will look into research that is past 10 years. Now let me just see if that is still there. I think I closed it. So review of literature is, you will see what literature has been done on the variables that you have considered for your current research, and look at their findings. What are the gaps? What were their limitations? So through your research, you will address those gaps, or you will address those limitations. By doing so, you are contributing something new to the already existing body of research in that specific area. So as this particular research was done during the pandemic time, there was not much information as to how these variables would behave during the pandemic time. Not much review of literature was gathered. So whenever you're doing a particular research, you should give a strong purpose for your research. What is the rationale behind your study? What is the need for conducting your study? So when we are doing such kind of a study during the pandemic time, see, the work culture itself got disturbed heavily during the pandemic. And then what would be the work motivation of individuals? In what way is the organization supporting? For instance, as soon as the pandemic had come, not many companies were offering insurance to their employees. It's only during the second phase that all these things have become a part and parcel of the organization's offering. And work motivation, how motivated are you to work amidst such kind of uncertainty? What is the support or offered by the organization? Then what is the psychological health of the employees? Again, here we are using GHQ, which is the general health questionnaire, which has around 5 dimensions in it, that will give us an overall understanding of the general health of the individual. So we are administering this questionnaire to the employees that are working in a particular startup. Why startup especially? Startup again has undergone a lot of turbulence during the pandemic period, right? Established companies know how to handle highs and lows, but startups are experiencing such kind of an uncertainty for the first time, right? So you see, a first objective, after the research question is posed, you will talk about the objectives to assess the level of work motivation, perceived organizational support, and psychological health of the employees. Then to find out the relationship between work motivation, POS, and psychological health. To find out the effect of demographic variables, age, gender, marital status, family structure, occupational level on work motivation, POS, and psychological health. So once your objectives are identified, then you have to arrive at the hypothesis. So all these are alternate hypotheses which say there will be a significant relationship, there will be a significant difference. How? There will be a significant gender difference in work motivation, perceived organizational support, and psychological health among the employees, right? There will be significant difference in work motivation, POS, and psychological health among employees regards to marital status. Why should we take marital status? Probably married people will have more support from their family, or they will feel more pressurized during the uncertain times like the pandemic. So marital status also would highlight might highlight a unique research component, right? So that is why what is this family structure? Joint family or nuclear family? Joint family meant more pressure, more demand for resources, right? So how is the work motivation? How is the individual hailing from a joint family perceiving organizational support? How is an individual hailing from a joint family experiencing general well-being, right? So all these things we have tried to examine here. So we are giving operational definitions to the variables we have considered and the sample that has been gathered. So this particular student has gathered around 100 data from 100 people. So this is the classification on the base of the age. So graphical representation, again, how many men, how many women, then marital status, how many were married and how many were either single or unmarried, then type of family, nuclear or joint, then cadre. Here we have 3 levels: junior level, mid level, and senior level. So then we are talking about research design. So here we are trying to find out the relationship between the variables considered in the study. So it is a correlational research design. And so these are the 3 tools that we have considered for this study: work extrinsic and intrinsic motivation scale, perceived organizational support scale, and GHQ 12. There is one more risk If we go in for very long questionnaires, people generally lose interest in the middle itself. So, I mean, as far as an MA dissertation is concerned, I ensure that the questionnaire is not very lengthy. So, in this scale, you see there are 6 subscales. And in perceived organizational support, there are 16 items. And GHQ, we have subscales in this also. Right? So, how did we analyze the data? T-test, correlation, ANOVA, descriptive analysis. So, this is the results part. First objective we laid out was to assess the level of work motivation and perceived organizational support and psychological health. So, you see all these 6 are talking about work motivation. This POS is talking about perceived organizational support, and GHQ is talking about psychological health of the employees. Then this table gives us an information about the correlation between domains of work motivation, psychological health and perceived organizational support. One look at the table, you will understand that there is a positive correlation. There is a positive correlation between psychological health and intrinsic motivation in the employees. Okay. Similarly, there is a correlation between integrated R and general health. There is a correlation between identified R and organizational support. Now, what is this intrinsic M? Identified intrinsic motivation, integrated regulation, identified regulation. So, you see, we try to understand these domains and see how are they correlating. Okay. So, this is how we report the results. Then here you see we are trying to find out if there is an association between age range, work motivation, perceived organizational support and psychological health. Right? So, what does the table indicate? If the results are significant, we put a star mark. That means it is significant at 0.05 level. Currently here you can see the GHQ is the only significant result. So, age, we have divided age into 2 categories again, less than 35 years and greater than 35 years. Why only into 35 and why not any other number? We have arrived at this figure after calculating the average age of the sample that we have considered for this research. Right? So, when you look at the mean value, how can you say it is significant or not? The mean value, whichever is high, for instance, those employees who are belonging to less than 35 years category, they are showing better psychological health than those employees who are greater than 35 years of age. Okay. Again, let us go to another table here. This is male and female, and we are trying to find out the association of gender on work motivation, on general health and psychological, perceived organizational support. Here, there is no association between gender and work motivation, right? So, what are the significant results that we found here? There is a significant difference between men and women on psychological health. What does it mean? Who is experiencing more psychological health? Then you have to compare the means. Who is having the higher mean? The male group is having the higher mean. That means the males are perceiving better psychological health than females during the pandemic. Okay. So, another example I can give is here. So, here if you see, it is not the t value we are talking about. we are talking about the F value. Why did we take F value? Here, the independent variable or the demographic variable that we considered was cadre. Cadre was divided into 3 categories: the junior level, mid level, and senior level. So, how is cadre associated with work motivation? How is cadre associated with general health? How is cadre associated with perceived organizational support? Right? So, here if you see, look at the mean values, the mid-level employees showed greater significance when compared to junior level or the senior level employees on external regulation. Okay. Similarly, on A motivation, the junior level employees showed greater levels on A motivation. Who were having better general health or psychological health? The junior level were the ones who were again having better psychological health than mid-level or senior level employees. Now, when you look at the perceived organizational support, which cadre thought the organization took care of them really well during the pandemic, you will see that it is the senior level employees who felt that the organization took good care of them during the pandemic. So, one basic factor that you need to understand: when the variable is divided into 2, we conduct a t-test. When it is divided into more than 2, we conduct an f-test. And if the p-value is less than 0.05, it is significant. When the p-value is less than 0.01, it is highly significant. Significant is denoted with a single star. Highly significant is denoted with a double star. So then we write the conclusions and implications, and we also write the delimitations, limitations, and suggestions for future research. So this is how we carry out a research, right? So this is just at a very basic level, depending on the kind of variables we have considered, and depending on, I mean, it had really given a lot of insights into what a pandemic can bring about, how employees perceive their organizations during any kind of uncertainty, right? Any doubts you have so far? Any doubts? No. Okay. So now we try to, yeah, like I was saying, how can you conduct your research? There are different steps in research process. We identify the problem and see what kind of research has been done in that area, go in for review of literature. Then once that is done, we lay down the objectives and we formulate the hypothesis, and also see how we can identify, manipulate, and control variables. For instance, if we are doing an experimental method research, then we definitely have to control the variables. If we are studying different levels of illumination on the performance or productivity of the employees, we will have to manipulate the variable illumination. Say one group will be given a certain wattage, another group will be given a certain wattage, and the other group will be given certain wattage. So you are manipulating, or you are giving different degrees of illumination to 3 different groups, and you will also want to have a control group with which you can compare your results, right? And then you will arrive at a research design. Now, what will the research design include? It will include the measurement procedure. How are you going to measure the variable that you have considered for the study? So you will talk about the tools that you are taking, and generally we go in for standardized tools. Because in psychology we have standardized tools, we go in for that. If we do not have standardized tools, then we do not say questionnaire method is our way. We go in for survey research. What is a survey method? You come up with questionnaires, you come up with questions that you feel are trying to answer your research problem, right? So for this, there is no fear of standardization of the tool, because you're clearly stating that it is a survey method. But if you are calling it a questionnaire way of collecting data, your questionnaire has to be a standardized tool, right? As by saying standardized tool, we are talking about the reliability and validity of that particular tool, right? And then we have to lay out the sampling strategy that we are going to follow. See, if you say you're doing it on a general population, you will use the probability sampling method. But if you have identified that your population is going to be only married women, then it is non-probability sampling method. You are already identifying your sample. I will take data only from type 2 diabetes patients. So mine becomes normal probable sample, right? There are different ways of collecting data: stratified sampling, cluster sampling, area sampling, snowball sampling. Various methods are there, which of course you will come across when you are reading that particular unit. Then we talk about the frame of analysis. What is this frame of analysis? What kind of data analysis are we going to use in order to arrive at our solution to the research problem? And what is the time frame? Mostly all research projects carried out for academic purpose are going to be cross-sectional, but a PhD work gives you a scope to do longitudinal framework. Okay, so for any investigation, selecting the appropriate research design is very important, because we will be able to arrive at valid findings, we will be able to make comparisons and arrive at conclusions. If say for instance, I was talking about the pre-test and post-test. For any intervention study, I have to do only that design. I cannot do any other design. Why? I want to study the effect of art therapy, the effect of mandala drawing on the well-being of the people. So how can I carry it out? So I will take a pre-test and a post-test design, right? So someone was asking me, how is experimental design different from the ex post facto design? Now, what is an ex post facto design? For instance, any research that is done on the people after the pandemic, that is an ex post facto design, right? Why? The incident has occurred and you want to see the impact of that incident on the people. Can you manipulate anything here? You cannot manipulate anything. Similarly, a disaster has occurred. Say a disaster like earthquake has occurred. Many people have become homeless, foodless, everything. You want to study their psychological well-being. So what are you trying to do there? It is an ex post facto design. As a researcher, you cannot manipulate anything. The situation has already occurred and you are just studying the psychological health of the survivors. That is ex post facto, where the researcher has minimum interference on the way the variables are acting. Whereas in an experimental research, the researcher can manipulate anything in the research that he has intended. Okay, so depending on the research problem we have on hand, we will arrive at a conclusion. What kind of a research is it? Is it experimental research or is it an ex post facto research? Okay. Then how can you select your sample? Will you allow anybody and everybody to take your questionnaire? You can. That becomes random sampling. Okay, a simple random sampling. Everybody has an equal amount of chance to be a part of your test. Another way you can arrive at a rationale behind choosing people is every fifth person in the class will be participating in your research. Okay, that is another way. There are different ways in which you can choose your sample. So depending on your research question, your respondents could be children, your respondents could be adolescents, they could be college students, they could be teachers, managers, employees, anybody. Okay. And while collecting data, the researcher should consider employing someone to collect the data, because the researcher cannot always be everywhere, right? And then if he is taking the help of others, he should train the person who is collecting data to collect the data in a correct manner. Okay. And then data analysis will be done with the help of any software, and interpretation. You have seen how data can be interpreted. It depends on the output that we get, right? And from that we draw conclusions and we prepare the report and then make it ready for publication, right? Now we are talking about research, we are talking about publication, we are talking about a whole lot of things, research design, research sampling techniques and all that. Why should we do research in the first place in psychology? Why should we do research? Right? If no research was carried out, we would not understand how learning takes place. If not for Pavlov's research, we will not understand that we can teach the dog. We will not understand that the pigeon learns how and when to get its food. Right? If not for research, we would not understand that all learning is not as simple as stimulus response. All learning is not as simple as stimulus, organism and response. But learning is also because of observation, modeling and imitation. Then learning is not just social learning. Learning is also insightful. Right? So we will not have any concepts of self-actualization theory by Maslow. We will not understand our various components of perception. We will not understand that there are three types of memory: sensory memory, short-term memory and long-term memory. We will not understand the importance of retrieval and rehearsal if not for research. Right? So you see that psychological research offers a lot of practical gains. Right? So we will understand the loopholes while we are doing our research, and it's a learning curve. We understand that this should not be the procedure next time. We have to rule out the interference of this variable next time. So when we carry out research, we arrive at conclusions, and those conclusions can be a guiding path for some organization. Right? So there are a lot of researches that are highly scientific, where we could control and manipulate the variables in order to see the performance of the employees. Right? There are a lot of scientific norms, statistical methods which are applied in collecting data, organizing the data, analyzing the data. So we are, through the quantitative form, trying to arrive at conclusions about a whole lot of psychological concepts. Okay, so this is about how we can arrive at a research problem and how we can talk about a lot of how we can formulate a hypothesis and stuff like that, right? So is there anything else that you want to understand, you want to know? Any questions? Is everything clear so far?
Yes.
So shall I take it that all of you are understanding the concepts well? A thumbs up at least, so that I can proceed. Okay, Vinila, right? Ram Babu Garu, fine. Okay, so it is clear, ma'am. Questions will arise once we do deep reading. Yes, that is precisely the reason why. Yeah, like I was mentioning, your chance to do a dissertation is gone. How can I contact you if I have questions? I'm just a facilitator. Your, yeah, Gmail, you can email me. I can respond. Okay. sangeeta.davla@gmail.com. So I can respond there. Not a problem. But in a way, I feel rather than ask the students to do another theory paper, this exposure would have been really helpful for the students to understand research better. And this was also precisely the reason why there was a condition that the student clears paper 5 and paper 6 in MAPC first year to move on to do their dissertation. So 5 and 6 need to be done together to understand the entire concept of research. Okay. What else is to be covered? Could you please explain the T and F? T test and F test. Okay. Like I showed you all. Yeah. Remember, we are taking the demographic variables to understand whether they have any association with the variables. Let me again take the help of this script. Not this. See, we use the t-test if the variable, marital status is the variable, is divided into two categories. See whether married employees have better general health or those people who are single or unmarried. What is the difference between single and unmarried? Probably they are not married at all, or they are divorced, or the spouse is no more. Okay, so how is their psychological health? Here you can see that. Now you just try to interpret this. Someone who can volunteer? Someone who can, I'm not going to say this is wrong, this is right, but what have you understood about what I was saying so far? This is general health. Okay, this gives us an understanding of the psychological health of the employee, right? So the married are, this is the married, this is the single or unmarried. What is the T value? 2.135. How do we understand this particular thing? I am just highlighting for our ease of understanding.
What I think is preferably single and unmarried are much more healthier than the people who are married.
Much more
Healthier
healthier
psychologically
psychologically.
compared to married people.
Exactly. Now, who's this who gave the answer? I cannot see your name. Anas?
Prashant, ma'am. Prashant.
Okay, yeah, Prashant. So, why have we concluded that? We compare the two groups. Okay, what are the two groups? The single or unmarried and married. Who is having the higher mean? Obviously, the single are having higher mean. So, why do they have greater psychological health? They have lesser things to worry about, probably, right? So, we use a t-test to find out the difference that may exist or may not exist just between two groups. Okay, now we go and see the f-test. If the demographic variable is divided into more than two categories, then t-test is not what is run. We run ANOVA, which is the f-test. So, if you see this, you will understand that, let's look at the perceived organizational support. You will understand that the senior level are having the maximum mean. So, basic difference that you need to bear in mind between t-test and f-test is you are considering a lot of demographic variables when you want to study 2 variables or 3 variables. What are we studying here? Work motivation, perceived organizational support, and psychological health. So, between these 3 variables, we have seen the correlation. Okay, in correlation, I'll show you the correlation table. Look at this. This is the correlation. What are there here? Just the 3. All this is work motivation. This is psychological health, and this is perceived organizational support. So, when we are running the correlation, the yellow highlighted part is the correlation that exists between the variables. Okay. So, you see, is there any relationship between organizational support and psychological health? Psychological health and organizational support? There is. A motivation and organizational support, right? So, here you are just studying the relationship between the variables that are considered in the study. Can you just keep your research till there? You also want to see, you also know that your respondents, some may be young, some may be old. You also know that some may be married, some may be unmarried. And you also know that some belong to a nuclear family and some belong to joint family, right? So you want to see if such kind of conditions can also have any outcome, any significant outcome on psychological health of the employee, on perceived organizational support of the employee, or on work motivation of the employee. So, what can we logically say? A person who hails from a large family, how is his psychological health going to be?
preferably healthy, I think so, because there will be various kinds of people around. So either they get motivation, either he or she might get motivation from all of them, or at the same time he might be stressful because there will be more responsibility over.
Precisely, right? So now when you do your study, you will see how the type of family is having an impact on the outcome. Okay, here in this correlation, see again your analysis also, you will have two kinds of variables, categorical variables and continuous variables. And you cannot have categorical variables in correlation analysis. You can have only continuous variables. What are these continuous variables? Those which have in the form of scores, okay, numbers. What are categorical variables? Those that are classified as yes, no, male, female. You can't have them in correlation. One thing we could have added in this table is, any guesses? We could have added age here, because age we have it in number, it is continuous. Okay, so what contribution will age do in a correlation analysis? You can see with increasing age is work motivation increasing, with increasing age is psychological health increasing, with increasing age is the perceived organizational support increasing. And if you get a significant result, say in psychological health, and the number is say minus 0.50, what does it indicate? As the age is increasing, the psychological health of the individual is decreasing. What could be the justification for that? There are many health complaints also that set in with increasing age. With those health complaints, probably he is not able to be adequately motivated to work. Okay, and that is why his psychological well-being is taking a hit, right? And if the organization has a medical policy, he feels protected. If the organization does not give him any medical policy or medical reimbursement, that is additional financial burden. So you see how age can give you a different dimension in your research. However, we did not add age here in this correlation analysis, but we have added age here, trying to find out if there is an association with age, association between age on work motivation, on perceived organizational support, and psychological health. So what have we seen here? The younger aged people, those who are below 35 years of age, experienced better psychological health when compared to those who were greater than 35 years of age. Okay, so T and F basically give you a better understanding as to which category of the variable is having an association with the dependent variable. So you can take your research a step ahead. This is the F test. This is the significant result we have got. Again, you're saying, you're making a comparison, right? So here you're just stating a statement that the mid-level employees, okay, look at this. The senior level employees are having better perception of organizational support. Is this enough? No. We can still go in for a post hoc analysis, which gives you a different combination. How many combinations are possible here? You can see junior level mid-level comparison, mid-level senior level comparison, junior senior comparison, right? And junior mid-level comparison, post hoc analysis gives you that kind of a comparison. There are lots of things that you can do in your statistical analysis and bring out newer points in your research. Like I was telling you about crosstabs, right? We said there are how many male and how many female? 47 male and 53 male, right? Out of these 47 male, how many of them belong to junior level? How many of them belong to mid level? How many of them belong to senior level? So you see, all that is intricate statistical analysis that you can do. That is, of course, a part of crosstabs that come under descriptive analysis. This is F-test, which we have done only till F-test. But again, which further pairs you can find greater association? For that, you need to do a post hoc analysis. Such kind of intricate results will arrive with the help of F-test. Okay, and the categories have to be more than 2. Is it clear? Anas, I think I have made myself clear. Yeah, okay. Now, any other question you want to know? Any other doubts you have? Because the information, yeah, welcome. I'm here to facilitate or clear your doubts. Anything else that springs in your mind? You want me to talk about that? Recently, there was this ICSSR. What is ICSSR? Any idea? It's an Indian organization which, yeah. Rambabu Garu, you want to say something on this?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay. It is called the Indian Council of Social Science Research, right? And they offer funding for researchers to carry out research. So one proposal that we had sent, of course, we did not get selected. Lived experiences of diabetic people during the pandemic. How was their quality of life during the pandemic time? Okay, so that is in fact an ex post facto research. The pandemic occurred, the people experienced the pandemic. Now we were trying to gather information. How? Helping them gather the information from their lived experience of the pandemic. How was their quality of life? Right? So ex post facto research design also helps us to take a look at a particular kind of an event that has occurred, right? And then analyze it on that basis. So moving on, we will talk a little about qualitative research. If you can just give me a small break, I'll go drink a glass of water and come back. Right. So, like we have laid this understanding in the very beginning of our class, saying quantitative data deals with a lot of numbers, lot of data that is gathered either through survey method or through questionnaires. So, how what is followed in qualitative data? Qualitative data, there is a whole lot of information given in your textbook, right? There is something called ethnography. There is something called case study. Okay. So we will first understand what is qualitative research. So this also tries this, why qualitative in the first place? When you have quantitative data with you, you still feel there is some aspect which you could not touch through the data that you have gathered. Okay. So qualitative research comes in to fill that particular gap of incomplete information. Okay. So you are getting findings and you are able to seek answers to that specific gap. Again, you can gather your data about lot of concepts from a community, from a culture, or a certain population, right? And it helps us in providing in-depth knowledge regarding, again, psychology is all about human behavior. So we get all those advantages which we are not getting through the quantitative method, right? So there are different types of qualitative research that we can adopt. And yeah, before I go into the different types of qualitative research, I also want to tell you about data. From where can we get our data? When we are getting data from people, we are actively going and collecting data that is called primary data. Okay. But when we are using data that is already available, for instance, we are gathering information from newspaper reports, from journals, from articles that are already mentioned, then that is secondary data. Okay. So primary data and secondary data are two basic things that you need to bear in mind. Is it necessary that we always do our research only on primary data? Not necessary. You can also go in for these secondary data, and you can also have a hypothesis on the basis of this secondary data, and then see whether the hypothesis can be rejected or accepted. Okay. So yeah, primary data means first hand experience. Secondary data means information has already been gathered and stored, and you are making use of that information, right? So when we are trying, yeah, now coming back to different types of qualitative research, we are trying to understand human nature, not just human nature. Psychology, is it a pure science or an applied science?
Applied science.
Preferably applied, because I think so.
Applied. So where all can you apply psychology? In short, I'm asking you all about the branches of psychology. Quick responses.
Social psychology.
In clinics, okay, let them talk. Okay.
Anas? Anas, one branch of psychology, applied branch.
Social psychology again.
Social psychology, yes. Do you all know the basic difference between pure psychology and applied psychology?
Not well.
any pure branch will give you information about the concepts and theories that are there in the branch. For instance, abnormal psychology. It is a pure branch. What is the applied aspect of abnormal psychology? Clinical psychology. Okay, you are applying the theories that you have learned in abnormal psychology in a clinic, right? Then the motivation, the learning, the memory, perception, sensation, all that you have learned in psychology, you are applying the same thing in your social setting, which becomes social psychology. Your psychological learning, your theoretical learning of psychology, when it is applied in organizations, it becomes organizational psychology, right? So there are, now I lost track as to why I asked you the question of the applied aspect of psychology.
So the qualitative.
Yes, right. I was asking you all about different branches of psychology. So organizational psychology is there. Do you think consumer behavior is more a management paper or a psychology paper?
Psychology.
It's a psychology paper. Then the management specialist will say, no, it is our paper,
As
right?
well as
As well as. So it qualifies both as a management paper as well as a psychology paper. Why? Because there is a lot that goes on in our mind in decision making. Decision making is again a topic related to psychology. How we perceive various brands. So, we are again doing a lot of market research. Psychology does not restrict itself to psychological illnesses. It also encompasses a whole lot of areas. Okay. So, we are talking about, one second. We are talking about carrying our research in to understand human nature. We can carry out psychology based researches even for understanding the markets, understanding the consumers, in order to understand the trend that is there in the market, in order to understand the preferences of people. Okay, so we can make use of different techniques in qualitative research. And why we use qualitative research? In order to overcome the shortcomings of quantitative, we follow qualitative research. So one such kind of technique is the case study. Okay, so case study is a method where you are considering one individual, or you are considering a group. Now, what could this group be? All Telugu people, or all men, or all adolescent girls, okay? Or it could be a case study on a specific event, or it could be a case study of an institution. We are studying. For example, how many of you know Gond? Where did we hear the word Gond?
A tribe.
Yeah. Did we all know it before Triple R? So, how the tribe behaves, it's a tribe that has been introduced to us. So, some sociologists and psychologists would be curious to know more about the tribe. So, when the researcher goes and stays along with them, lives along with them for 6 years to 1 year and observes everything that they do, it is called an ethnographic study. Okay, but you are just trying to research, go there just and gather information, come back and then put it in the form of a report and submit. It is a case study. Okay, so what is a case study? I'll share an example of a case study. Okay, yeah. So what do we get out of a case study? It helps us in getting an in-depth knowledge of the nature of the problem or the individual, the process or phenomena of that specific case we have considered for our study. There are multiple methods of data collection which are used for case study research. Example could be interview, observation, documents, and questionnaires. And the final report of the case study gives us a rich and holistic description of the case we have taken and the context, right? So now I will again share a work that was done by one of the IGNOU students. Of course, this was also done under my guidance. Only then I'll have the access to what they have studied, right? So earlier, the method was you have to come up with a synopsis. What is a synopsis? It is a brief version of the project you want to carry out. So most of the projects that I have guided were quantitative in nature, in the sense we picked on certain questionnaires, administered them, and then run them through the SPSS. But so far I have done around 4 qualitative studies, and one I am sharing with you. How do we have a lot of information on suicide? Many researchers have gone, spoken to people who have been associated with the person who committed suicide, right? So one such case is this, which I am going to share with you all. So this is factors contributing towards suicide, a case study of a YouTuber, right? I don't know how many of you closely follow YouTube, but there was this one person, he was called Dina, right? So you see how this report has been submitted. We have the introduction, we have review of literature about suicide, we have rationale of the study, right? And then the research problem, then we have the objectives, we have the hypothesis, and we have the operational definitions, the research design. So the current study takes a qualitative approach. And what is the technique specifically we are using under the qualitative approach? The case study research method is used so as to understand what goes on or what went through the mind of the person who committed suicide. What are the feelings of the people who are closely associated with the person who has committed suicide, and how are they handling the situation post the event? The study adopts an intrinsic case study method in the intent of the case analysis. Then sampling, we take the purposive sampling method. Why we are saying purposive sampling method? It is a method in non-probability sampling. Okay, And why are we calling ourselves this as a non-probability sampling? Because we know specifically whom we are going to interview, right? So it said the researcher will consider the singular case of YouTuber Dina who committed suicide. Additionally, to understand different perspectives, the researcher would carry out interviews with the YouTuber's mother, kith and kin, and friends if possible, right? And then how will we carry out analyzing the data? If you can remember, we said that data is analyzed with the help of SPSS in quantitative analysis. How is data analyzed in qualitative analysis? Progress has been made so far, so much, in the sense that we have software available now to analyze qualitative data also. The software is called NVivo. It may not be the only one. There may be others also which help us in analyzing the qualitative data. I am familiar with NVivo, right? So you see what are the steps in analyzing a case. We have to first open a vignette that will establish the time and place of the study. Then the researcher will identify the issue, the purpose of the study, the method of the study, and the issues that are surrounding the case. There will be an extensive description of the case and its context. Issues are presented to project the complexity of the case. The issues or the challenges are probed further. A summary of the findings of the researcher about the case, naturalistic generalizations, and conclusions are arrived at through the researcher's experience. Finally, the researcher will end with a closing vignette, an experiential note on the topic taken up for research. So this has been the synopsis which was given acceptance, and here this is the final project where you will see that the researcher could not get access to the father. Mother was there, and another part, the best part for carrying out this case was the suicidal note that was left behind by the person, Dina. Okay? I'll show you the suicidal note that the person wrote. So this is the case. Remember, there were around 7 steps that were identified in the synopsis as to how the data would be analyzed. So this is laying the foundation for the case. And to think of it, this boy was from IIT Gwalior, and his mother reported that this boy was still getting money from YouTube, and when he was alive, the kind of money he got from YouTube was okay, but after his death, the money is just pouring in. People are more and more curious about the kind of videos he had made, and they wanted to see his content, right? So this is the suicide note boy Dina wrote, right? And so here he says, my life is filled with lot of traumas. Okay, all this is the suicide note that is written by Dina. And this is from a fellow less shitty human being. Okay, perspectives of the mother. So the researcher went and spoke to the mother. This is the father's perspective. And this is the author, that is the researcher's perspective, right? So this is how you analyze the case, okay? And you give your subjective opinion. I only feel sorry for my friend and regret that I could not strongly advocate to seek psychological counseling for her son. though I really wished I could have intervened more forcefully, but could not, as I recognized the delicate balance between respecting my friend's autonomy and understanding the limitations she faces due to the circumstances. So this is the fellow YouTubers' opinions. There are so many YouTubers who made videos out of Dina, and they have expressed their opinions. So you see, uh, people said he committed suicide only to get more views, or I mean, he was acting different only to get more views, all those things. So I thought, why not make it a project report? Why not make it a case study? Of course, the idea was the students, and we had taken it forward. We made that a case study and we submitted. It is like I'm just working on it to publish it somewhere. Okay, so this is how a case study, I mean, this is my maiden attempt at doing a case study. But how I did, I went to the textbook that described, I went to the qualitative methods textbook. I noted down what all were required to do a case study. I saw that I was fundamentally right at every step, and I thought it was quite doable. And that is how we presented this case study. Eventually, the student was very happy because she could discuss a psychological issue, because suicide is definitely a psychological issue. She could discuss this in an academic light. Okay, so this is how one could do a case study. Another case study example could be, you could catch hold of a business organization. Okay, and then lay down the condition as to why you want to study the organization. Out of your entire effort, what research dimension are you bringing out from it? Right? So yes. Hope you have understood case study as a qualitative method well with this practical example. And now we move on to understanding another method in qualitative study, which is called ethnography. Right? So, like I said about the Gonds, this approach mainly focuses on a particular community. And it is more of a kind of close field observation, and it tries to study the socio-cultural phenomena. Okay, we are trying to judge others based on the cultural standards that we are aware of. You can also use ethnography as a method to make a comparison between different cultural groups. For example, do you all know about patriarchy and matriarchy? What is a patriarchal society? What is a matriarchal society?
Patriarchal society, the fathers or the male have dominance, and matriarchy, the female have dominance.
Yeah. So, patriarchy means male dominated society. Matriarchy means female dominated society. So, we can bring this to the fore by making a comparison between a patriarchal society and a matriarchal society, how women are in these two societies. Okay, there are certain communities in Assam, certain communities in Kerala where matriarchy exists predominantly. This is just an example I'm giving. Okay, so we can take women as our major idea of interest and see how well they are flourishing. Flourishing is also a psychological component, a very important psychological component in the field of positive psychology. Okay, so how do women flourish? That is the general research question. How are we going to study that? Ethnography is the method you have chosen. So what do? You stay in a patriarchal society. Andhra Pradesh, what kind of a society is it? Andhra Pradesh is predominantly a Anas?
I think patriarchal. I don't have much knowledge about Andhra.
Patriarchal society. And you go to Kerala, to that specific place where matriarchy is predominant, and then live with them for say 3 to 6 months, make your observations, right? And then come back, after making your notes, you come back, sit and analyze point by point. Okay, so that is how
Ma'am, I
ethnography.
have a doubt.
Yeah,
Kerala matriarchal, predominantly matriarchal society.
there is one particular tribe called the Nayars, I think, where matriarchy is very, very predominant. I'm not too sure about that, but one thing I am 100% sure is certain places in Assam and certain places in Kerala, you still have predominant matriarchy. Women are the head of the family there. Okay. So, yeah, we could study the eating habits of North Indians vis-a-vis the South Indians. And we can also use it to analyze the cultural past of a group of people. For instance, study any kind of a civilization. Okay, so this is another method that comes in qualitative research. Another method we have is the historical method. What is this historical method? We are trying to understand and analyze the causal relationships. With the historical method, the data related to a particular event is collected and evaluated so as to understand the reasons behind why that event had occurred. So you are also trying to test a hypothesis related to that cause and effect. And you are also seeing the trends of the event, which will help to explain the current events. And with the help of this information, we can anticipate our future. Okay, so this is the historical method. Then we have the grounded theory. What is the grounded theory? The researcher is very active here, and he collects data regarding his research question through observation, and he tries to develop theories. So these theorists can work on a topic and they are in a position to generate a theory, generate a new theory out of their observations. They can generate a new theory, or they can also elaborate on a theory that is already established. Okay, but before you carry out this grounded theory, there are certain characteristics that you need to bear in mind. It helps in analyzing whether the theory is really pertaining to an existing community. The theory that you have generated is clear and understandable. The theory can be generalizable, and the theory that came out of your analysis has been analyzed under controlled conditions. So these are the 4 characteristics that we need to bear in mind when we are doing grounded theory approach, right? So one basic approach that people take when they are using grounded theory is interviews. Okay, they gather a lot of information, they transcribe all the interviews, they identify codes, they identify certain codes, and these codes become the key points of the data that they will gather. Okay, so this is another method in qualitative research. The last method we will talk about is phenomenology. What is phenomenology? Work is all about behavioral phenomena. The behavioral phenomena are explained with the help of events that have occurred, people's experiences about the event. You are not using any kind of theory, you are not using any kind of assumptions. So the concept can be understood with the help of one of the studies that was done, in which people were asked to describe about their experience, right? So it could be the lived experiences that we can gather, right? So this is also an interviewing process, right? So under qualitative research, we have discussed case study method, we have discussed ethnography, we have discussed historical method, we have discussed grounded theory, and we have discussed phenomenology, right? So just to understand a little bit more about the differences between qualitative and quantitative, we are asking questions in both kinds of research. What kind of questions are we asking in quantitative research? We are asking only close-ended questions, either yes or no, or a choice. You are forcing the respondent to pick any one from the choice that is available. Like if you take the Likert scale, it is on a 5-point Likert scale. It is strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree. So while collecting data, the respondent has to make a choice in the options that you have given. It is close-ended. When you compare that to qualitative research, the questions you ask are open-ended questions. How do you gather that information? Is it easy for you to write everything? You record those questions. What is common in both the styles? You are taking their informed consent. Okay, formal, informed consent, formal, prior, informed consent, FPIC. Then, how do you represent your data? Data is represented in the form of numbers and in the form of graphs in quantitative research. In qualitative data, in qualitative research, the data is represented in the form of recordings, in the form of videotapes, in the form of notes that you could take, right? So, what is your objective in quantitative research? You want to quantify everything and predict causal relationships. And in terms of qualitative research, you are bringing out the variation and explaining relationships by describing people's behavior. Describing behavior that is shown by most people. How do you know it is shown by most people? You arrive at a saturation in your interaction with them. Right? So talking about the research design, in quantitative research, the research design that you are taking is predetermined. The questions are standardized. There is a structure that you will follow for all participants. But in the qualitative research, there is a lot of flexibility for the researcher. The questions he is asking are open-ended. So, the questions that he is asking one person, the open-ended questions could be the same, but the information that is given by the respondent spurs many other new questions, giving in a rich volume of information. So, a lot depends on the responses that are given by the participants. Okay. So, is quantitative research method better or qualitative research method better? I have given you enough explanation about quantitative research method and qualitative research method. With this information in the background, you tell me which one is better. Yes? Do I understand you are behind your mic or no? Your device is somewhere and you are somewhere. Anas feels it is qualitative. Okay. Prashant says it is quantitative. Right? A mixed methods approach is found to be ideal. What is a mixed methods approach? You are doing both. Okay. What is the, for a PhD, a mixed methods approach would definitely give a lot of weight, because you are overcoming the shortcomings that a quantitative research design would bring in with the help of your qualitative data. Yes, Amir said both quality and quantity are important. So, say for instance, you are drawing your data collection from around 500 people, the result that you get there, and there are some lacunae there which could be overcome by the interviews that you conduct through the qualitative method, and perhaps you can fill the gap after just 30 interviews or 50 interviews. You don't have to go and meet 500 people, right? So you definitely have to recognize the efficiency of both the methods and then include both of them in your research. Then it becomes a complete work. So, qualitative research is not always about figures. It is also about experiences of people. So, qualitative just creates the room for such kind of description of experiences. So, we can identify and explain specific religions. Again, I go back to the Gond example, right? Understand their behavioral phenomenon. You collect your data under natural situations and try to identify meaningful and important aspects to your research, right? So qualitative research helps us, or rather gives us a chance, a scope to unfold those facts which could not be unearthed by using the quantitative method. Okay. So any other doubts you have? You want to discuss anything? This is not just the method, only method that is there in qualitative research. We also have grounded theory. We have spoken about that. Then we have discourse analysis. What is discourse analysis? It is nothing but content analysis, right? Where by analyzing the content that has been given to you by the respondents, you arrive at themes. How are these themes arrived at? You take the help of codes. Okay, so all these are a part and parcel of qualitative research, right? I have done my part. I want you all to now open up and ask any kind of doubts you've had in the process, or we can discuss anything about a research proposal, whatever. But I want that to come from you.
Ma'am, in quantitative research, right, when we collect the data, how much authentic the data would be? Means there might be some kind of people who might not say exactly what they feel. So we
Definitely.
need to have that frequency where we need to cut out some of the data. So how we could do that?
See, there is no way you can cut out such kind of data. What are the threats that are there when we are collecting data through quantitative method? You give a long questionnaire to a respondent.
Okay.
Initially, he is interested, but he just sees that the questions are too long. He hardly takes the time to read the question.
He just taps on
Very,
something.
very
Correct.
haphazardly, he will tick. So,
Correct.
how genuinely is he? I mean, how genuine are the outcomes of such kind of research?
Very less, very less.
That could be overcome in a qualitative data. Okay. Another thing, the person could hold one kind of an attitude, but he knows that this is not the right kind of an attitude, and so he wants to go with the majority population. He is falling prey to social desirability. That also is one misgiving in quantitative data or quantitative research. So, can you say social desirability trap is not there in qualitative data? It is very much there as well.
There is there as well, because they might not remember everything. So what they are saying is based on conscious or subconscious, but yeah, attempts
So,
they can't
so
even remember.
you see, both kinds of research have their own strong points and weak points.
Yeah, true.
So sometimes what you have found out in quantitative, you may just find a contrary in qualitative.
True.
So in order to even out such kind of biases or irregularities, taking the mid path or the mixed methods is an ideal way out.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Because at times when we take the personality test, we find out that based on quantitatively, we will find out that this person might be introvert, but in person, if we talk to them, he might be an extrovert. So So there, so we need to understand both and find out that
it is the other way around. Other way around.
Correct. Okay, okay. Same ways.
The person is actually an introvert, but in the outcome, you will see that he is an extrovert.
True,
right?
true.
So what is happening there? The person thinks this is the right kind of behavior. This is the more expected kind of behavior, and that is how he falls into the grip of social desirability, and he fakes his response.
True. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah.
Next one.
Yeah. Well, that is as much I can cover in the 4 hours slot that is created for our interaction. Right? The subject is very vast. It is too simplistic. Put everything in a nutshell within 2 hours, a session each. I strongly would urge you that you read your textbook. It is definitely a very, very fascinating area to understand how people carry out research. Huge volumes are written. Huge volumes are written by psychologists, sociologists, our researchers, and our theorists. How did they do it? It's definitely not easy. Right? Yeah. Thank you, Praveena. Thank you. Thank you very much, and all the best to you. Any other concept you want me to explain? You want more information?
Ma'am, I have some doubt in the ground theory.
Yeah.
Could you please summarize? I mean, some characteristics. Ma'am already explained about some characteristics, right? Then we are doing.
Can you just type your question, Anas, because your audio is not clear?
Okay, ma'am. Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am. I have a doubt on the ground theory. As you already explained about that, there are some characteristics teachers are there, no, for ground theory. Yeah, so
Okay.
I have a doubt on that, please.
Okay. Tell me. What is the doubt? Suma, thank you. Are you typing the question, Anas? Okay. You did not get the characteristics of grounded theory. A grounded theory can be done if it is existing in the society. Okay. You are examining something that is happening in the society. I'll give you an example. We're talking about climate change. Okay. We're talking about climate change. So, how can we study climate change? One of our scholars in the department, he's studying the impact of climate change in the lives of fishermen. Understood? So the method he's following is grounded theory. He's just getting the information from them through open-ended questions. He is using video recording, and if they are not allowing to videotape, he is getting audio recording. Okay, so these are the different methods in which he is getting the information from the fishermen. And like I said, he is analyzing this phenomenon of climate change on the fisher community, on the fishing community. Okay, and he will arrive at a theory out of the analysis that he does. Okay, with the amount of information that he has gathered, he will arrive at a theory. He has gathered information from around 60 fishermen, I think. Okay, and then he will arrive at a theory which talks about the fishermen community and their behavior with respect to the climate change. Okay. And basing on the theory that he has come up with, he is leaving scope for further research to be done. Okay. And then with the theory that he has arrived at, others can carry out more research. Okay. So this is one example I can give you about grounded theory. It needs to have a perfect fit. I mean, that phenomenon you are going to study is happening right now in your community. Okay. Climate change is one phenomenon which can affect all living things.
Yes.
Right? So, what can climate change do? You think climate change has a psychological impact? Yes. We also have a scale which is called climate change anxiety scale. A standardized questionnaire has been developed. Okay. So you see, climate change is a concept which helps us understand various perspectives, and this boy has chosen a specific community of the fishing community. Okay. And he will arrive at a theory. That theory is specific to the fishing community. Someone else can come and check the same for another community.
Okay.
And probably could add a newer dimension to it.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Right. Anything else? So, like I showed you all, Google Scholar, each one of you can identify your area of interest. For instance, you want to see if school teachers have job satisfaction. Okay, so go to Google Scholar, you can type studies on job satisfaction in teachers. Right? Read a couple of research articles, you will understand new terminology. Okay, I presume you all do not have that much time because this is a part-time course. You want to get your degree, but if at all you are seriously interested in pursuing your research, getting into PhD anytime, reading definitely helps a lot. Without reading, we cannot progress in research. If you do not read a research article, you will not be able to identify the research gap.
Ma'am, one question. Like, actually, I have read a paper which stated that in the year 1937 to 1942, okay, and the year recently, like 2020, like 2070 to 2024, whatever is there. So this is actually repetitive. That what has happened in that particular period of time and what is happening right now are actually similar, like not exactly the same, but similar kind of conditions, the same wars, the same kind of pandemic, the same kind of economical misbalance, and everything
Yeah.
is happening exactly. So what do you think that the exact same thing which has happened in the 1947 or 1950 will happen in future?
See, I mean, I'm talking more from a commonsensical perspective.
Okay.
The very fact that you said this article said that what has happened there is happening again now. And my logic and common sense, I feel everything is cyclical,
Perfect.
right?
That's exact same thing I am asking. Yeah, true.
Yeah. So you look at this thing, our living conditions here and living conditions in the West. People have not gone to the West, but they're still aping the West. How is it possible? Because of brain drain, because of opportunities, job opportunities abroad, right? You see
Yes.
that more and more people are going to the US and they are bringing in those kind of facilities back home for their parents.
Correct. True.
I grew up without eating a pizza till 30 years of age. How was pizza introduced into India? Right?
Okay.
Only a certain population, only an elite population in India was familiar to that cuisine. But later on, because of the Western influence, we started consuming more and more baked stuff.
Pizza,
Okay.
cool drinks, everything.
Yeah. What were the cool drinks we knew? We knew Gold Spot, we knew Kismet, we knew Limca. But now you have mocktails, Virgin Mojito, right? So a lot of borrowing is happening, and we have become the diabetes capital of the country. Sorry, globe.
True. True.
Right? And now you see the condition that is existing in the West. Lot of them are getting into quinoa, which is a form of a millet, and a healthy consumption when compared to the all-purpose flour or the refined flour. Right? Then you have more of organic stuff available. You have more of jaggery consumption. From where you have more number of people participating in yoga, meditation, which have been more native to us. Right? So what is happening is what was there with us is now
They are
going
taking
to
it.
the West. What was
Even
there with the West was coming to us. So it is all a
it's a cycle.
cyclical process.
Correct.
And to think of it, talk about fashion. Bell bottoms, are they
Used to
not
be in
there now?
1980s.
Are they not there now? Some of the designers
Some
are bringing in that again.
same.
The polka dots, which were there earlier, are coming back again, right? So certain weaves that we saw earlier are again back in trend now.
True.
So you see,
Correct.
it is all a
So things are
cyclical
coming back.
process. It's all a cyclical process. The Spanish flu was the first pandemic we have record of. And then the COVID-19 is the second record of a pandemic. It took 100 years for a pandemic to revisit. The next pandemic, when it will happen, we do not know. But it is bound to happen.
True. Correct.
So everything is a cyclical process.
Cycle.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Right.
Done. Wonderful. Thank you.
Right. So how do we know that Spanish flu was the pandemic at that time? None of
Although
our
we doesn't have any kind of network or anything, but still we got to know somehow.
So it is the records, the annals that were there that helped. There were images. There were images as to how people used to go. I don't know if you all remember. People were clad in long gowns. They all wore the masks.
I've seen pictures. Yes.
Yeah. So these pictures are records. We have, we have information in the form of all these records and what do you call that? Fossils and all the stuff like that.
Engravings
Right?
on the wall,
Yeah,
which they
engravings.
made.
Yes, yes. Now, of course, cloud.
Actually,
Lot.
even when I go deep, when we go deep into the Puranas and the things with us, so even then they have been inscribed most of the things that which might probably be happening. So
The
after a period of time,
intermittent fasting, which won a Japanese researcher the Nobel Prize, is very native to the Indian culture.
true, correct. We actually used to do at some point of time, but after a period of time, we have actually lost all those things.
Yeah. So, rest of the world is making the best use of our cultural practices, and
Yes, ma'am.
we are busy aping the rest of the world.
Satisfying their actually interests, basically,
Yeah.
not
So,
following us.
mindfulness, heartfulness, all these techniques that contribute towards the wellness of a person, Reiki, pranic healing, all these have their roots in Indian culture.
Only in Indian culture, according to me, because after a period of time, they went to Greek or uh, Latin areas,
See,
especially in the European kingdom.
Maslow's self-actualization,
Mhm.
you can see its roots even in our Indian practices.
Yes,
Yoga.
we have. We already
Yoga,
have.
which talks about the ultimate step.
Step, correct. Top level, visionaries.
Yeah. So there is an interconnection between all these things that are existing around us. And we
Actually,
are,
I read. Actually, I read more number of books now. So when I got back, so what I found out that we had this language called Prakrit, not before Sanskrit. So at that point of time, we only used to speak. There was no lipi.
right.
So those are the people who came from the West or from Japanese or some other places, and they came and took our subject in the form of lipi.
Okay. Right.
So in that form, when they came into lipi, that's when it has been introduced to the other people, and then it came back to India in the
Right.
form of books or something else. So
So you see,
that's the
it is
reason.
the vicious
It's
cycle
interesting.
existed even then.
Correct. Exactly.
Right.
Same.
Okay.
So that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry to take your time. Thank
Okay.
you.
No, it's fine. Anybody else wants to say something? Hope you all understood the topics well. Like I said, the text already gave you the theory. I wanted to show it through some work. And yeah, that is how it is. So, when are your exams scheduled?
Hopefully on June.
June. Okay. You have ample time. Please go through the material that you have, and all the very best to all of you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
Most welcome, Vinila.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sarita, thank you.
And can we contact you if there any further
Pardon?
things? Can we contact you for any further clarifications or something?
Practicals?
No, ma'am. Can we contact you for further clarifications
For
or for
further
filling the?
clarifications, you can write an email. Okay?
Yeah, could you please
Yeah,
provide
yeah.
an email?
But please give your identity clearly and tell that you were there in a contact class conducted by RC-VIJAYAWADA. Otherwise, I'll not be able to trace you. Okay?
Okay. Sure.
Okay. Email is there in IGNOU website. My email is available on IGNOU website.
Okay, madam, we will conclude.
Yes, sir. Thank
Okay,
you.
madam. Prasad sir not available by this time. I am calling him, but he's not lifting the phone.
No, I spoke to him during the break.
Okay, madam.
He told me he's in some meeting.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, madam. Thank you.
Thank you, Amir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Right. Oh, bye-bye. Good day.